Commander Zethkar's 4 eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he watched the human fleet scatter before his armada. The bridge of his flagship buzzed with excited chatter from his officers, their mandibles clicking in what humans might mistake for applause. After 18 months of warfare, the hegemony forces were finally breaking the stubborn human resistance. "Sir, the human battleship Defiance is retreating toward the asteroid belt," reported his tactical officer, Vexthun. "Their formation is collapsing." Zethkar allowed himself a moment of pride. The humans had proven more resilient than expected when the hegemony first encountered them, but superior numbers and technology were finally showing their worth. His species, the Krillian Empire, had conquered 47 star systems over the past century. The humans would be number 48. "Maintain pursuit," Zethkar ordered, his translator converting his chittering speech into standard galactic. "Do not let them regroup. The High Command wants this sector secured within the cycle." The human ships were strange things, Zethkar mused as he watched them flee. Unlike the sleek, biomechanical vessels of the hegemony races, human ships looked like metal boxes welded together by drunk engineers. They were ugly, inefficient, and somehow managed to pack more firepower than vessels twice their size. Still, crude engineering could only go so far against overwhelming odds. 3 hegemony races had joined forces to crush humanity: the insectoid Krillians with their hive mind tactics, the silicon-based Nexari with their energy weapons, and the aquatic Mordun with their gravitational manipulation technology. Together, they represented the combined military might of over 200 worlds. Humanity controlled exactly 12 star systems. The math should have been simple. "Sir," Vexthun's voice carried a note of confusion. "The human ships aren't heading for the jump point. They're moving deeper into the asteroid field." Zethkar's compound eyes focused on the tactical display. His tactical officer was correct. Instead of fleeing the system, the human vessels were weaving between the massive floating rocks that made up the Kepler belt. It made no tactical sense. "Perhaps their jump drives are damaged," suggested Navigation Officer Krelon. "Many of their ships took heavy fire during the engagement." "Or it's a trap," added weapons specialist Thekmore, his mandibles grinding nervously. "Humans are known for their deception." Zethkar considered both possibilities. Humans were indeed cunning, but what trap could they possibly spring here? His force consisted of 96 ships, including 4 dreadnoughts. The fleeing human force numbered only 18 vessels, and most of those were damaged. "Scan the asteroid field," he ordered. "Look for mines, hidden weapons platforms, anything that might pose a threat." The scanner operators, a mix of Krillian and Nexari technicians, bent over their instruments. After several minutes, they reported back with negative readings. The asteroids were exactly what they appeared to be: chunks of rock and ice left over from the system's formation. "Sir, I'm detecting some unusual energy signatures," reported sensor operator Yithmar. "But they're very faint. Could be residual radiation from the battle." Zethkar waved a dismissive claw. "Continue pursuit. But maintain battle formation. If the humans want to die among the rocks, we'll accommodate them." The hegemony fleet advanced into the asteroid field like a metal tide. Their ship shields easily deflected the smaller debris, and their point defense systems vaporized anything larger than a fighter craft that came too close. The human ships continued to flee deeper into the maze of floating stone. As they penetrated further into the field, Zethkar noticed something odd about the human formation. They weren't moving like a retreating force. There was too much coordination, too much purpose in their movements. The damaged ships were being protected by the undamaged ones, yes, but there was something else. They seemed to be calling out. "Communications, are you detecting any transmissions from the human vessels?" Zethkar asked. Communication specialist Gentar, a Nexari whose crystalline body pulsed with data streams, hummed thoughtfully. "Yes, sir. Multiple transmissions on various frequencies. Most are encrypted, but some appear to be in clear language." "What are they saying?" Gentar's form flickered as she processed the alien words. "Many appear to be names, sir. Rex, buddy, princess, Max, also phrases like come here boy and who's a good girl. Zethkar's confusion deepened. Were the humans suffering from battle madness? Why were they using designation codes that made no tactical sense? Sir! Vexthun's voice cracked with alarm. I'm detecting massive movement throughout the asteroid field. Something big is happening. The tactical display erupted with contacts. Thousands of them, emerging from behind asteroids, from within deep craters, from hiding places that shouldn't have been able to conceal anything larger than a probe. But these weren't ships. They were alive. What in the name of the Hive Mother? Zethkar whispered. The creatures emerging from the asteroid field defied easy description. Some were massive, the size of frigates, with armored carapaces that gleamed like metal. Others were smaller but, moved with predatory grace, their forms sleek and deadly. Still others appeared to be made of living shadow, visible only as distortions in space itself. Are those animals? Weapons specialist Thekmore asked in disbelief. They were. Somehow, impossibly, the humans had brought an army of creatures into space. Not in ships or containment fields, but swimming through the vacuum itself as if it were their natural element. The largest of the beasts responded to the human calls immediately. A creature that looked like a cross between a whale and a dragon, easily 300 meters long, came bounding through space toward the human fleet with obvious joy. Its hide was scarred with what looked like the marks of previous battles, and several weapon emplacements were grafted along its spine. Sir, that thing is armed, reported Thekmore unnecessarily. Multiple plasma cannons and what appears to be a mass driver system integrated into its biological structure. More creatures appeared, each more impossible than the last. A pack of sleek, wolf-like beings that moved in perfect coordination, their bodies crackling with bioelectric energy. A massive turtle-like creature whose shell was covered in defensive turrets. Something that looked like a giant cat, except it had retractable missile pods instead of claws. How are they surviving in vacuum? Demanded Krelon. No natural creature can live in space. These aren't natural, Zethkar realized with growing horror. They're engineered. The humans have been breeding space-capable war beasts. The creatures reached the human ships and immediately took up protective formations. But these weren't mindless animals following programmed instructions. They nuzzled against the hulls of human vessels, received affectionate transmissions from the crews, and displayed obvious emotional attachment to their human companions. Their pets, sensor operator Yithmar said in wonder. The humans have weaponized their companion animals. Zethkar watched in fascination and growing dread as more creatures emerged. A massive bear-like beast with armor plating grafted to its fur. A horse-sized creature that looked like it was made of living crystal, its body refracting energy beams into prismatic weapons arrays. A pack of dolphin-shaped beings that generated localized gravitational fields as they swam through space. Sir, the human fleet is regrouping, Vexthun reported. And their animals are taking up attack formations. Indeed they were. What had moments before been a fleeing, broken force was now transforming into something else entirely. The human ships formed the core of a new formation, while hundreds of their engineered companions spread out in complex patterns around them. How many? Zethkar asked quietly. Still counting, sir. At least 400 individual creatures, ranging in size from fighter class to dreadnought equivalent. And, sir. Vexthun paused, his voice filled with something that might have been awe. They're still emerging. I'm detecting movement throughout the entire asteroid field. The tactical display was now a constellation of new contacts. Each asteroid that had seemed empty before was revealing hidden creatures. Some emerged from caves hollowed out in the rock. Others had been camouflaged against the asteroid surfaces so perfectly that sensors couldn't distinguish them from the natural formations. This is impossible, Krelon protested. An operation like this would require years of preparation. How could our intelligence networks have missed something this massive? Zethkar was beginning to understand. Because we were looking for military installations, weapons platforms, hidden fleets. We weren't looking for this. Sir, came a nervous voice from the communications station. I'm receiving a transmission from the human flagship. It's addressed to you personally. Put it through. The main screen flickered, revealing the face of a human female. She appeared young by human standards, with the pale skin and blue eyes common to her species. But there was something in those eyes that made Zethkar's chitin crawl. It was the look of a predator who had just revealed that her prey had walked into a carefully prepared trap. Commander Zethkar, the human said, her translator rendering her words in perfect Galactic. I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Defiance. I believe formal introductions are in order. You cannot hope to defeat us with trained animals, Zethkar replied, trying to project confidence he no longer felt. My fleet represents the combined might of 3 civilized species. Captain Chen smiled, showing those disturbing white teeth that humans seem so fond of displaying. Oh, Commander. These aren't trained animals. These are our family. Behind her, Zethkar could see the bridge of a human warship. It looked much like any military command center, except for one detail that made his blood run cold. Crew members were giving affectionate scratches to creatures that looked like armored wolves. A massive feline head poked into view of the camera, and Captain Chen absently petted it while continuing to speak. You see, Commander, when humans first began exploring space, we didn't leave our companions behind. We brought them with us. And, over the centuries, we've done what humans do best. We've made them better. Genetic engineering is forbidden under the Galactic Accords, Zethkar protested weakly. The Accords apply to sentient species, Captain Chen replied. These creatures chose their modifications. They chose to follow us to the stars. They chose to protect their human families. And, now, Commander, they're choosing to show you what happens when you threaten that family. The human captain leaned forward, and her smile became something terrible. Did you know, Commander, that the average human family pet would die to protect their human companions? It's been bred into them over thousands of years of evolution and selective breeding. Loyalty, courage, and unconditional love. She gestured toward the view screen, where the space around the asteroids now swarmed with hundreds of impossible creatures. Now imagine that same loyalty, that same protective instinct, in creatures specifically designed for space combat. Imagine what happens when you threaten their families. Zethkar looked at his tactical display and felt something he hadn't experienced since his molting days, genuine terror. The human ships were no longer the center of attention. The creatures surrounding them had moved into attack positions, and they were looking at his fleet with the unmistakable intensity of pack hunters who had identified a threat to their territory. Commander, Captain Chen continued, her voice now carrying a note of steel. I'm going to give you one opportunity to withdraw your forces and leave this system. Not because I fear your weapons, but because once I give the command, I won't be able to call them back. When you threaten a human's family, you don't fight the human. You fight everything that loves them. The communication ended, leaving Zethkar staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders, but he found himself unable to speak. In all his years of conquest, in all the battles he had fought across dozens of star systems, he had never faced anything like this. They had been winning. Right up until the humans revealed that they hadn't been fighting a military force at all. They had been fighting a family. And now that family was very, very angry. The first attack came without warning. Commander Zethkar was still processing Captain Chan's ultimatum when a sleek creature the size of a corvette simply appeared behind his leftmost destroyer. One moment the space was empty, the next moment something that looked like a giant space whale with retractable fins materialized and clamped onto the hegemony vessel's engine section. How did it get through our sensors? Weapons specialist Thekmore demanded, his mandibles clicking frantically as he tried to target the creature. The answer became obvious within seconds. The creature's hide was covered in adaptive camouflage that perfectly mimicked the cosmic background radiation. It wasn't just invisible to the naked eye, it was invisible to nearly every sensor system the hegemony possessed. Sir, the destroyer Void Striker is reporting massive structural damage, communications specialist Gentar announced. The creature appears to be chewing through their hull plating. On the tactical display, Sethkar watched in horror as the bioluminescent creature literally ate its way through the destroyer's armor. But this wasn't mindless destruction. The creature was specifically targeting critical systems, engine mounts, weapon power conduits, shield generators. It knew exactly where to bite for maximum damage. All ships, open fire on the creature, Sethkar ordered. 20 hegemony vessels turned their weapons toward the destroyer, but before they could fire, something extraordinary happened. The creature released its grip on the damaged ship and rolled away with impossible agility, using the destroyer itself as a shield. Every shot intended for the creature instead hammered into the hegemony vessel. "Cease fire! Cease fire!" Sethkar shouted, but it was too late. The destroyer, already crippled by the creature's attack, exploded under the combined firepower of its own fleet. The creature that had destroyed it was nowhere to be seen, having vanished back into the cosmic background as suddenly as it had appeared. "Sir," Vexthun's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "I'm detecting similar movement patterns around our entire formation. We're surrounded." The tactical display confirmed the worst fears. Dozens of the camouflaged creatures were moving into attack positions around the hegemony fleet. They appeared as brief flickers on the sensors, shadows that might have been equipment malfunctions if not for the evidence of their presence. "How are they coordinating?" Krelon demanded. "There's no communication we can detect." Sensor operator Yithmar's readings provided a chilling answer. "Sir, I'm detecting low-frequency bioacoustic signals. The creatures are communicating through space itself, using gravitational waves and electromagnetic pulses. They're operating as a coordinated pack." A coordinated pack. Sethkar felt his exoskeleton go cold. His species understood hive mind tactics, but this was different. These creatures weren't following programmed instructions or responding to central commands. They were thinking, adapting, and working together like a family unit that had trained together for years. The second wave of attacks began moments later. This time, the creatures came from multiple directions simultaneously. A pack of wolf-like beings, each the size of a fighter craft but infinitely more agile, swarmed the hegemony formation's flanks. Their bodies crackled with bioelectric energy, and, when they struck, they didn't use weapons. They were weapons. "Sir, the cruiser Iron Mandible is reporting total power loss," Gentar announced. "Multiple creatures have attached to their hull. They appear to be generating some form of electromagnetic pulse." On the viewscreen, Sethkar could see the wolf pack creatures clinging to the sides of the cruiser like parasites. But, instead of chewing through the hull, they were somehow draining the ship's power systems. The cruiser's lights flickered and died, its engines went silent, and its weapons powered down. "They're not destroying the ship," Sethkar realized with growing amazement. "They're disabling it." "Sir, this is impossible," Thekmor protested. "How can biological creatures generate electromagnetic fields powerful enough to shut down military-grade power systems?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Chen's voice echoed across the fleet's communication channels, somehow having bypassed their encryption systems entirely. "Genetic engineering, Commander Sethkar. We took the electric organs from deep-sea creatures and enhanced them 1,000-fold. These particular companions were bred from earth wolves crossed with electric eels and bioengineered shark tissue. They can generate enough directed electromagnetic energy to shut down a star destroyer's main reactor." Sethkar stared at the disabled cruiser in disbelief. "You created living weapons by combining predatory species?" "We created family members who could protect themselves and their human companions in any environment," Captain Chen corrected. "The weapons part was just a bonus." As if to demonstrate the point, more creatures emerged from their hiding places among the asteroids. These were different from the wolf pack, larger and more heavily armored. They looked like a cross between bears and crustaceans, their hide covered in natural armor plating that gleamed like polished metal. "Sir, those creatures are registering as massive biomechanical signatures," Yithmar reported. "Their carapaces appear to be grown rather than manufactured, but their reading is stronger than our standard hull plating. The bear creatures moved with surprising grace for their size, each one easily as large as a frigate. As they approached the hegemony fleet, Zethkar could see weapon emplacements growing from their backs like organic turrets. Not attached or grafted on, but actually growing from their bodies as needed. Adaptive bioweaponry, he whispered. They can modify their own bodies in real time. The creatures opened fire, and their weapons were unlike anything in the hegemony arsenal. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, they fired what appeared to be living ammunition. Seed-like objects that struck hegemony ships and immediately began to grow, spreading across hull plates like metallic vines. "Sir, the frigate Shard Cutter is reporting that some kind of organism is covering their hull," communications specialist Gentar announced. "It's blocking their sensors and interfering with their maneuvering thrusters." Zethkar watched in fascination as the living projectiles covered entire sections of his ships. The organisms weren't trying to breach the hulls or cause explosions. Instead, they were systematically blinding and crippling his vessels, making them easy targets for follow-up attacks. It's a hunting strategy, he realized aloud. First they disable the prey's ability to fight back, then they disable their ability to flee. Only then do they move in for the kill. "Sir," Vexthun's voice carried a note of desperation. "We've lost contact with 6 ships. Not destroyed, just lost. They're still showing on sensors, but they're not responding to communications and their power signatures are minimal." The hegemony fleet, which had entered the asteroid field as conquerors, was rapidly becoming a collection of drifting hulks. The creatures weren't destroying them outright, they were systematically neutralizing each ship's ability to fight or flee, leaving them helpless but intact. "Why aren't they finishing us off?" Thekmore asked. "They could easily destroy our disabled ships." Captain Chen's voice provided the answer. "Because that's not what guard dogs do, Commander. They don't kill unless they have to. They neutralize threats and hold them until their humans decide what to do with them." Zethkar felt a chill of understanding. "You're taking prisoners." "We're being responsible pet owners," Captain Chen replied. "Our companions are trained to subdue, not slaughter. Though I should warn you, if you try to fight back against a disabled ship, or if you threaten any human crew members, their training will shift accordingly." To emphasize the point, one of the massive whale creatures glided past Zethkar's flagship, close enough that its bioluminescent hide filled the viewscreen. The commander could see weapon systems integrated into the creature's body, but more disturbing were the obvious signs of intelligence in its eyes. This wasn't a trained animal following commands. This was a thinking being that had chosen to fight alongside humans. "How?" Zethkar asked. "How did you convince sentient creatures to modify themselves for war?" "We didn't," Captain Chen's voice carried a note of pride. "We asked them to join our families. We offered them the same protections, the same love, the same loyalty that we give to all our companions. The modifications were their choice, made so they could stay with their human families even in the hostile environment of space." The implications hit Zethkar like a plasma bolt to the thorax. "You're not fighting with trained animals. You're fighting alongside volunteers. Every creature you see chose to be here," Captain Chen confirmed. "They chose to leave Earth's comfortable environments. They chose to undergo genetic modification. They chose to learn to fight in space. And they chose to put themselves between their families and anyone who threatens them." A new group of creatures appeared from behind a cluster of asteroids, and these defied all logic. They appeared to be made of living crystal, their bodies refracting light and energy into beautiful, deadly patterns. As they moved, they generated localized gravitational fields that bent space around them. "Crystalline life forms with gravitational manipulation capabilities," Yithmar reported in awe. "Sir, I've never seen anything like them. They're beautiful." They were beautiful, Zethkar had to admit. They moved like living jewels through space, their crystalline bodies creating rainbow patterns against the stars. But beauty became terror when they reached the hegemony formation. Instead of attacking directly, the crystal creatures began to orbit the disabled ships in complex patterns. As they moved, their gravitational fields created eddies and currents in spacetime itself. Ships that had been drifting helplessly suddenly found themselves caught in artificial gravity wells, pulled into tight formations whether their crews wanted it or not. They're hurting us, Krelon realized. Like livestock. Sir, came an urgent report from weapons specialist Thekmore. Our remaining ships are being pulled into a concentrated formation. If we don't break free soon, we'll be sitting targets for their larger creatures. Zethkar looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were hardened warriors who had conquered star systems and faced down entire enemy fleets. Now they looked like terrified younglings confronting something beyond their understanding. Commander, Captain Chen's voice cut through the chaos. I'm transmitting coordinates for a safe corridor out of the system. Your disabled ships will be towed to those coordinates by our companions, where your crews will be transferred to the vessels that are still operational. You have 10 minutes to make your decision. And, if we refuse? Zethkar asked. There was a pause before Captain Chen answered, and, when she did, her voice carried a new edge. Commander, what you're seeing now is our companions playing. They're having fun, showing off for their human families, proving how clever and strong they are. If you force them to stop playing and start fighting. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. On the tactical display, Zethkar could see hundreds more creatures still emerging from the asteroid field. Pack animals that moved in perfect coordination. Solitary hunters whose presence was barely detectable until they struck. Massive creatures that looked like living dreadnoughts, bristling with bioweapons that defied classification. And all of them were looking at his fleet with the focused attention of predators who had identified a threat to their territory. Sir, Vexthun said quietly. We should take the corridor while it's still available. Zethkar stared at the impossible scene before him. An entire ecosystem of weaponized creatures, each one a miracle of genetic engineering and biotech integration, all of them united by a single purpose, protecting their human families. The hegemony had been winning right up until they discovered they weren't fighting a military force at all. They were fighting love made manifest, loyalty given form, and the protective instincts of creatures who would die before they let harm come to those they cared about. For the first time in his military career, Commander Zethkar gave the order to retreat. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler Belt, Commander Zethkar stood in the Galactic Council chambers, facing representatives from 47 species. The holographic display behind him showed tactical recordings from that fateful day, frozen at the moment when hundreds of impossible creatures had emerged from the asteroid field. The human military capability has been severely underestimated, Zethkar reported to the assembled dignitaries. They possess biological weapons technology that exceeds our current understanding of genetic engineering. Counselor Vexthera of the Alterian Collective leaned forward, her silver features reflecting the chamber's blue lighting. Commander, your reports describe creatures that should not be able to exist. Biological entities surviving in vacuum, generating electromagnetic fields, manipulating gravitational forces. These claims strain credibility. With respect, Counselor, I have provided complete sensor recordings and testimony from 300 survivors across my fleet. The evidence is irrefutable. High Arbiter Krell Knox of the Nexury Dominion activated his translation matrix, his crystalline form pulsing with skeptical energy patterns. Even accepting your claims, Commander, these creatures represent a clear violation of the Galactic Biological Weapons Convention. The humans must be held accountable. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. High Arbiter, with respect, I suggest you read the Biological Weapons Convention more carefully. Article 7 specifically prohibits the creation of biological weapons. Article 9 defines a biological weapon as any organism created for the specific purpose of causing death or destruction. And these creatures do exactly that, Counselor Vexthera pointed out. No, Zethkar replied. They don't. He activated his own control interface, and the holographic display shifted to show footage from the battle's aftermath. Disabled hegemony ships drifted in perfect formation, their crews unharmed, their life support systems mysteriously still functional despite their ships' other systems being completely dead. The creatures disabled our ships but caused minimal casualties. They targeted systems, not crew quarters. When our ships lost power, some of the creatures actually used their own bioelectric capabilities to maintain life support for our trapped personnel. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Furthermore, Zethkar continued, intelligence reports gathered since the battle reveal that every creature we encountered was originally a companion animal. Genetic modification was performed with each individual creature's consent, using neural interface technology that allows for genuine communication between humans and their companions. Arbiter Krell Knox's crystalline form flickered with confusion patterns. Consent? From non-sentient animals? That's where human science becomes truly remarkable, Zethkar admitted. They don't enhance just physical capabilities. They enhance cognitive function as well. Every companion animal that undergoes modification gains sufficient intelligence to understand the process and make an informed choice about whether to proceed. He activated another series of recordings, these gathered by hegemony intelligence networks over the past months. They showed human colonies across 12 star systems, but these weren't military installations. They were communities where humans lived and worked alongside their enhanced companions. Children playing with creatures that could level a city block. Elderly humans being cared for by beings that could survive atmospheric re-entry. Scientists collaborating with companions whose enhanced intelligence rivals our best strategic computers. This isn't a weapons program, esteemed counselors. It's a society. The recordings showed impossible scenes of daily life. A massive creature that looked like a cross between a dragon and a whale, gently carrying human children to school. A pack of wolf-like beings working alongside human engineers to design new spacecraft. Crystalline entities that generated localized gravity fields so human farmers could grow crops in zero-gravity environments. They've created a true symbiotic relationship, Zethkar explained. Humans provide medical care, technological enhancements, and emotional companionship. The creatures provide protection, specialized capabilities, and their own unique perspectives on problem-solving. Counselor Merdane of the Aquatic Collective, whose biosuit filled with nutrient-rich fluid, spoke for the first time. Commander, you speak as if you admire these humans. They destroyed a significant portion of your fleet. They disabled a significant portion of my fleet, Zethkar corrected. And, then, they helped repair it. The chamber erupted in confused chatter across a dozen different languages and communication methods. Zethkar waited for quiet before continuing. 3 days after accepting their terms for withdrawal, human ships approached our damaged vessels. They were escorted by their companions, but they came offering assistance. Human engineers, working alongside their enhanced partners, helped repair our ship's critical systems. They provided medical aid to injured crew members. They even supplied fresh food and entertainment materials for the journey home. He activated one final recording, this one from his own ship's security cameras. It showed human engineers working side by side with hegemony technicians, while various creatures provided assistance. A massive bear-like being delicately held hull plates in place while they were welded. Wolfpack creatures used their bioelectric abilities to provide clean power for repair tools. Most remarkable of all, the creatures seemed genuinely happy to be helping their former enemies. They didn't have to help us, Zethkar said quietly. We came to conquer their worlds, to destroy their civilization. But, when they saw our people in need, their response was to offer aid. Not because their leaders ordered it, but because that's who they are. High Arbiter Krell Knox's form pulsed with skeptical patterns. This could be a deception. A way to lower our guard before a larger assault. To what end? Zethkar asked. High Arbiter, if the humans wanted to expand their territory, they could have done so at any point in the past 6 months. My fleet was crippled. The nearest hegemony reinforcements were weeks away. They could have pressed their advantage, captured entire star systems. Instead, they helped us repair our ships and sent us home with a message. What message? Counselor Vexthara demanded. Zethkar activated his personal recording device, and Captain Sarah Chen's image appeared in the chamber's holographic projectors. She looked exactly as she had 6 months ago, young, confident, and flanked by creatures that defied classification. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, the recording began. By now you've heard reports about what happened at Kepler Belt. I want to be very clear about what you witnessed. What you saw wasn't humanity's military might. It was our family defending itself. The image shifted to show scenes of human colonies, children playing with incredible creatures, families working together across species lines, communities where the line between human and companion had blurred into something beautiful and new. "We don't want war," Captain Chen continued. "We never wanted war. We want to explore the galaxy, to learn from the incredible diversity of species that call it home, and to share what we've learned with anyone willing to listen. Our companions choose to join us on this journey because they believe in that dream as much as we do." The recording showed more scenes: human scientists sharing genetic enhancement techniques with alien researchers, human medics treating injured beings from a dozen different species, human children learning alien languages while their enhanced companions translated in real time. "But, if you threaten our families," Captain Chen's voice took on a harder edge, "if you come to destroy what we built, then you'll face everything we are. Not just human determination, but the loyalty of creatures who chose to stand with us. Not just our technology, but the love that binds us together." The image returned to Captain Chen on her ship's bridge, surrounded by her impossible companions. "We're extending an invitation to the Galactic Council and all member species. Come visit our worlds. Meet our families. See what we've accomplished together. Learn what becomes possible when different species truly cooperate instead of merely coexisting." The recording ended, leaving the chamber in profound silence. Finally, Counselor Vexthera spoke. "Commander Zethkar, in your professional military assessment, what would happen if the hegemony launched a full-scale assault against human space?" Zethkar considered his answer carefully. "Counselor, I've spent the past 6 months analyzing human capabilities based on what we observed. The creatures we encountered at Kepler Belt represent a tiny fraction of their total numbers. Every human colony has similar companions. Every human ship carries enhanced crew members. Every human family includes beings with capabilities that exceed our best military hardware." He paused, remembering the sight of hundreds of creatures emerging from seemingly empty space, all of them ready to defend their human families. "But, more importantly, we would be fighting an enemy that doesn't fight for territory or resources or political ideology. They fight for love. For family. For creatures that chose to stand beside them even knowing the risks. In my experience, Counselor, there is no force in the galaxy more dangerous than someone defending their family." High Arbiter Krelnox's crystalline form pulsed with contemplative patterns. "What are you recommending, Commander?" "I'm recommending that we accept their invitation," Zethkar replied without hesitation. "I'm recommending that we learn from them. And I'm recommending that we never, ever threaten their families again." 3 days later, the first Galactic Council diplomatic mission departed for human space. The delegation included representatives from 12 species, xenobiologists, geneticists, and cultural observers. They traveled in a ship whose hull bore both the Galactic Council insignia and a simple message in human script: "We come as friends." When they emerged from jump space at the edge of human territory, they were met not by warships, but by a welcome committee that took their breath away. Human vessels escorted by creatures of impossible beauty and capability, all of them broadcasting signals of greeting and curiosity. The delegation was welcomed to New Earth Colony, where they saw the truth of Captain Chen's words. This wasn't a military installation hiding behind propaganda. It was a genuine civilization where humans and their enhanced companions lived, worked, and thrived together. Children played with dragon-like creatures in parks where gravity was generated by living crystal beings. Scientists collaborated with enhanced wolves whose intelligence rivaled the galaxy's greatest minds. Artists worked with color-shifting creatures to create beauty that transcended species boundaries. Most remarkably, the enhanced creatures greeted the alien delegation with curiosity and friendship. These beings, who could level cities or tear apart starships, approached the visitors with the enthusiasm of pets meeting new friends. Within a week, formal cooperation agreements were being drafted. Within a month, the first genetic enhancement procedures were being performed on volunteer companion animals from other species, with human scientists sharing their techniques freely. Within a year, the galaxy had been transformed. The Hegemony War, as historians would later call it, lasted exactly 1 day. But its aftermath changed everything. Humans had shown the galaxy something unprecedented, a species that had weaponized love itself, turning the protective instincts of companion animals into an unstoppable force. They had been winning the hegemony forces. Right up until they discovered that humans had never been fighting alone. They had been fighting as a family, and families, it turned out, were the strongest force in the universe.